like I want to do like a cheat sheet of like if you want to pretend you have Canúint in the Rinne. So there's some really obvious words and kind of commonly used phrases as well, and I think we should go through some of them if we can.
Yeah, sure. Another one that's important and that maybe stands out in contemporary Irish is when you're asking questions, so interrogative forms. In most other dialects, you'll find most frequently K, so things like Céivéad or Céin Fá. Obviously up north, then you get Cadchige or Tuige. Get, for example, why in Waterford Irish, it's not a K form, it's déchúis. Okay, so what reason? And that day, you find that in different places as well. So if you're asking somebody how much, in other dialects you'd have Céivéad, in Waterford Irish, Déivéad.
Mm-hmm.
If you're asking somebody the time, in other dialects you'd have Céin Town, and in Waterford Irish you'll have Déin Town. So there's quite it stands out again compared to what you get in other dialects.
And you hear that quite a lot, of course, because, in conversation, you hear questions quite often. So
yeah, totally. Yeah. Again, it's one of those things that I think might be changing. Increasingly, I think younger people.
Not Haver.
I think so. Yes, I think younger people might be adopting K forms, and I hear younger people, the damned young people ruining language. That typical. I don't buy into that. I don't buy into that argument, but that's another story for another day. But I think that younger speakers are starting increasingly to use the K forms rather than the day forms.
Well, I'm just going to start using the day forms the full time now because somebody needs to do that.
Yeah. You found it, I mean, if you look back historically, you found it in other places as well, but in terms of frequency today, it's certainly kind of a quintessential Waterford feature. It's another one of those ones that was found in County Clare though, as well as some of the other things that I mentioned. The déchúis was found up in County Clare as well. So it's kind of another point of evidence for that dialect band that we have.
Ach ní bheith mór an de sin an inis go dé an chlár. Like people wouldn't use that.
No, so in Irish was, nuair bhí an ghaeling á labhairt go fóil gan den chlár.
Yeah.
Déchúis san an, yeah.
And what other distinctive features would we have?
I give maybe a couple of examples in terms of personal names. And again, these are probably mostly traditional ones and they might stand out as being, quite different to people. So another quintessentially traditional Waterford feature that I think is becoming less common is the pronunciation of a broad L at the end of words. So if you get like an AL at the end of words. In Waterford, this was traditionally pronounced like a CH or a GH sound, so like a ch or a ch. Now, when I say traditionally, again, I'm talking here probably about speakers that were born before the 1960s or 70s. Mm-hmm. Well, in or before the 1960s or 70s. I'll give you an example.
Yeah, so please give me an example.
Yeah, so if you visit a pub in Waterford, you might notice that the locals, all across County Waterford, you might recognise that the locals have a bit of a graw for large bottles of Guinness, which you don't find in other areas, particularly maybe large bottles from the shelf. Now, if you were to order one of those in traditional Waterford Irish, you might ask for a budaich rather than a budale.
Wow, severus.
Yeah, it's quite an interesting one. You still hear that in pubs and ring, you'd hear that quite a bit. As I say, mostly amongst older speakers. I probably don't have it myself most of the time, if at all, actually.
It's fair not the Éamonn.
Yeah, Féidir Cinnte. Yeah, my father would have it, and other relatives of mine. Yeah, it's probably just, if you go back one generation, it was probably much more common than what it was now.
This is any word that ends in a broad L, is it?
Yeah, so other words, so like in other Munster dialects you'd have howl, so over there, howl and sun, and hauch and sun. Yeah, balling out with the double L at the end of it.
So not only do you have the different sound, like was that the diphthong? Yeah, diphthong.
Yeah, exactly.
Then you have
the diphthong and the double L at the end. Good, excellent. You've learned. I've taught you something.
Compound Canúint.
Yeah. Cool. Another saying that's I don't know how common it is in Ring, but certainly amongst people living close to me, fan siar on spal, if you were to say it in another dialect. So stay back from the site that you cut grass in. So stay back from anything that was dangerous. You'd be told to fan siar on spach.
On spach. Okay.
Yeah. So again, that broad L at the end of it. Another place you get that is in personal names. So the names Mícheál and Dónall.
No way.
Pronounced. Yeah. So if you were to have a go at those, so take that second one, for example, Dónall. Do you want to try that in Waterford Irish?
I mean, tá mé smaoineamh inis Dónach.
Yeah,
No?
almost, except the O changes at the start as well. That's another feature we didn't talk about.
Oh.
What you get is Dúnach.
Dúnach,
yeah, that's traditionally the way it's pronounced. The name Mícheál as well is pronounced elsewhere. There are a couple of different changes here, and that rather than like an A fada, you get what's like an E fada at the end. So you get Mhéach. Mhéach is traditionally how that
What? Mhéach?
Yeah, Mhéach.
Tá sin aus mar annam.
Mhéach. Yeah.
Wow.
So if you look, for example, one of the I think probably respondents in some of the surveys that were done of the Irish and Ring, I'm not sure off the top of my head in Vikerson, but certainly in some of the other ones, the Irish of Ring and Shanachait nDéise, there was a respondent there whose name was Mhéach. And talking about and providing examples of this pronunciation of the name, which is quite interesting. Other ones that are kind of that fall into the same category in terms of their names, personal names, but a different feature are the names that are pronounced elsewhere as Séamus and Éamonn. Now I have to be careful here. You'll notice that I made a bit of a run up to those. So these probably are retained more so today, I would say, than the broad L at the end of words. Much more so, actually. So what you get traditionally is Séamus and Éamonn.
Yeah, Séamus and Éamonn.
Yeah. Now it's not
harder than E fada.
Yeah. It's like you're saying Éamonn or something like that. You're putting an emphasis on the second.
Oh, Shock is Éamonn that you are Éamonn.
Éamonn, yeah. And Séamus. Now again, it's not across the board. You'll have a lot of people who are Séamuses and Éamonns locally, but you still have young people who are Éamonns and Séamuses.
Amazing.
So yeah, and I think, as I say, it is probably maintained to a greater extent than the Mhéach and the Dúnach, which I think are probably again speakers before the 1960s and 70s.
Well, Tommy should confach this a hustle. I'm going to start a campaign to bring back Mhéach because that's amazing. And when I was down in Ring as well, I remember there was was Nioclás quite a common name down there, or did I imagine that?
Yeah, so the patron saint of the parish, the diocesan parish in Onrine is Nioclás, Santa Claus. So it would be, I think, probably for that reason it's quite popular. But you get as well, actually, there, you get what's called an epenthetic vowel between the C and the L. So it's Nioclás. Nioclás, yeah, exactly. Yeah,
oh, yeah.
Nioclás.
Nioclás.
Kind of a subtle one, a schwa.
When I was there, that's when I also met Éamonn Ó Céilleachair for the first time. And that's an amazing name. Is that from Onrine, or is that just a nice
I know two Éamonns from the area. They're people who know Éamonn Mac Séalaigh as well, maybe from Nemeton. They do a lot of the sports coverage on TG Cahir. They're the only two Éamonns I know, though, in Waterford. I'm not sure is it traditionally and quintessentially Waterford or not.
Okay. Well, anyway, I'll stop talking about people's names.
Get Éamonn on, and he'll tell you all about the history of it. One of the Éamonns.
Yeah, well, Éamonn, I'll get one of them on. I was just laughing. We're talking about names. We'll be getting into that Irish thing of like, do you know your man? Do you know this, that? And
yeah, totally. Yeah.
The Cartham shout out or hort, actually, when I was in the Gaeltacht, the gColáiste Canúint, Ógie Ó Céilleachair was one of my teachers.
Yeah.
And I remember him teaching us on Is and Ruddy a win le Canúint na Moon, August Canúint na Rinne. So
how did that go down up in Connemara?
We just used to laugh at him. You're like, why do you speak like this? But I mean, when you're 16 and you have no understanding, but like now I'm like on Facebook asking him for pronunciations and for like songs that he taught us and things like that. So
yeah. Ógie would be very interested as well in kind of traditional forms of Irish locally as well, and he'd be fairly well read on it also.